Hey everybody, thanks for checking out my latest video. Hey peeps, I'm going to go over DraftKings ReignMakers, the week 7 that just finished. I'll be doing a video on the Thursday to Sunday slate, probably tomorrow, Thursday, before those games. But there's some really cool stuff that happened this week, or there's some wild stuff that happened this week, and I also have a little bit of more cool information to share with you as well. But we'll go over the winning lineups, some results, and some of my recent buys and sells on ReignMakers. So on the core and rare contest, the fiats, which are the 5-person lineups, here's the winners: 171 points, 168 points. Burrow, Chase, Jacobs, Williams, and Walker. Now, I'll just go ahead and tell you right now, I didn't do very well this week, but basically all the cards I've sold came in. I've sold 2 Burrows, 4 Jacobs, and that's sort of what cost me bigger winnings. You know, I own Williams, I own Walker, I own several McLaurins. Boyd is the one guy I didn't have, and I've sold a Chase previously as well. But Boyd is the kind of the guy that hurt me on both ReignMakers and DFS. But obviously, selling these Burrows and Jacobs, you know, it came back to bite me in the butt this week. A quick thing to note here is I've also looked up the marketplace spend on various of the various winners just to see. This doesn't include packs, but 2 pretty small ones won these. They won 5,000 and 10,000. I consider those relatively small because I've actually now spent more on the marketplace than these 2. They might have spent more on packs, but also I spent some of my winnings, but that's encouraging actually. And like I said, this was a pretty predictable lineup right here, or somewhat predictable. The Williams wouldn't be, but on DFS, you know, all these guys were really good plays. Anyway, let's look at the elite, and this is where the craziness happened this week. So the $100,000 first prize contest ended in a tie. However, they actually had different lineups. But when it comes to a tie, they look at the tiebreaker, which is the serial numbers. And I don't know if you could see on here, but both their serial numbers were extremely low, 157 and 258, I believe. That's crazy. And the 258, I feel bad for him, some degree, but because that was an $80,000 tiebreak difference on a matter of like 100 serial numbers between 5 cards, which is crazy. So this was Burrow, Chase, Jacobs, Rare, Kittle, and Schuster, with the 4 elites there. No superstar. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Chase is the superstar. My bad. But it's not quite the same. It's again the Burrow, Chase, Jacobs. That was the key, really. You know, that's the ones that, that's the biggest key. On DFS, you also needed Boyd to some degree. But they had Aaron Jones and Mike Williams. And again, they came in tied. You can also see down to like 10th place, there's a pretty big gap. The elite, you know, I'm not in that one because it costs too much at this juncture, but you can see that there's a 20-point gap, which is not the same on the other ones because there's not that many entries into this contest. Anyway, you know, we've talked about ties and showdowns, but we had one on the regular 5-man, which is possible more than in DFS because it's only a 5-man. As far as their marketplace spend, this might be encouraging to some of you as well. That this one has only spent 10,000. This one spent about 25,000. If you consider my last video, I went over whales who've spent, you know, like 200 to 500,000. So on a $10,000 investment, not including packs, made 100. But again, that 80,000 is heartbreaking. You know, that can happen in DFS and contests, but it's heartbreaking. Oh, and by the way, I think the deep. Let's show the deep. I think this deep won by like 0.1 or 0.2 over the next one behind it. And that's happened to me, but that happened to me in one of the deep contests as well. So real quick on the deeps, they got the core, the rare, and the elite. Win 2, 5, 3, and 10,000 first prize. 228, 211, 223. You can see their marketplace spends there. Both these are medium. This is a little bigger, but still not a whale. And of course, it takes more guys to make the elites, to make the deeps. And that's sort of been that's sort of been why I've been talking about the running backs, maybe because I've been focusing on the deep, maybe too much. I don't know. And that's why I've been keep having to buy running backs and various other pieces because I keep wanting to fill out, make my deep lineups better, or injuries and buys and things like that. I'll show some of that in a second. But this guy actually had a 4-man Cincinnati stack: Burrow, Boyd, Chase, and Hurst. And then he had Jacobs and Carlson from the same game, running back and kickers, kind of a good combo. And then Chubb, the Tennessee D, and DJ Moore. So he had Burrow, Chase, Etienne, Kamara, Mike Williams, Kelsey, Tucker, Dallas D, and Olave. And on the elite, you can use 3 rares. So that was Burrow, but they didn't have a superstar, it looks like. Yeah, they didn't. So that was Burrow, Chubb, Barkley, Boyd, and Higgins, Kittle, Zerline, Van Der Esch, that's Dallas, and Jacobs. This guy didn't even have Jacobs, but pretty big name players there, as you can see. This is very unusual. Anyway, let's move on. So the thresholds to win the basic prizes, the lowest prizes, the spots numbers didn't change. So they kept that the same. I haven't checked this week. I assume they remain the same. But in general, I didn't put this information in right. But the points totals the threshold required went higher. These two aren't right. They generally went higher. The elite went lower. These went a little higher. 81 points is a lot to get a prize. I mean, that's like that's over 15 points a player, because 15 points a player would be 75 on these. So it's getting harder to cash, I would say, gradually. On the deeps, again, these got a lot higher because the deeps were really easy to cash in, which is why I kept cashing, but they seem to be getting more competitive. I'm not sure. That could be because of the Thursday night game, what's in particular in the Thursday night game, or people might be diverting from their showdown into that, like using the players from that instead of in the showdown, because the showdowns can be pretty brutal sometimes. Of course, what's nice is you can win so much money off a single game. So that went from 75 to 90. That went from 84 to 95. And the elite deep has always been a little tougher so far. It doesn't payment. It's a small contest, but that went up all the way to 113. And I think that's got 9 spots? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 9 spots. So that's like 10 points you need average. That includes a kicker and a defense and a tight end. So basically, what's won the core fiat each week, the biggest contest, looks like it's been around 160 average. It was up to 171 this week, which was higher. Of course, like I said, the Burrow Chase was pretty much one of the top 2 or 3 stacks in DFS, and sort of the unknown one, even for non-DFS, because high scoring players. Yeah, so, and that was a 2 and then a 1-1, meaning 2 came from the same game. So 4 of their 5 players were linked. I haven't even been as good myself about trying to put people on the same game. I've tried to stack quarterback with the player in general when I can. And Bengals stack came in 2 weeks in a row, and that happened in DFS as well. So again, selling my Burrows and my Jacobs didn't help matters at all. 4 Jacobs and 2 Burrows. I mean, I made good money on them, but on the rare, it was a 3 stack again, both of the Bengals, both weeks, but different players. This was Higgins with them. You can see there it's probably been closer to 150, especially there's that one giant outlier to win on that. The elites, I don't have the first couple weeks, but it's basically catching up to the totals from those, or it's the same totals. It's just deeper down. There's a little bit less competition. That was just a 2 stack this week. On the core deep, you're looking at about 215, 220 to probably win, which is getting up to, what is that? I can't even calculate in my head right now. Well, if there's 9, then that's average of 20 each. But this was, I believe, the first week or the second week I came in second in this one, or third, and won $500. I was half a point away from second. But that had a big stack, 4-2 out of 9 players. You could say that got lucky doing a 4-person Cincinnati stack with no Chase, but it's the kind of thing where what if Chase goes down in the first quarter or something? My results, I pretty much had my second worst week. Again, selling all those players and just the combinations I used just didn't work out that well. I ended up making about $40 and got 3 cards. Now, one of the cards did turn out to be pretty good. And you could see like the ones I thought were some of my worst lineups, I put in like the rookie pack contest and the bank and the single entry. Those ended up coming in. And I had one showdown hit, but basically I was very close on cashing the minimums on several more. It just didn't happen. But so it's just a little disappointing considering I've allocated more than I did at the beginning of the season using some of my winnings from this in DFS. So $40 up to about $900 for the year plus cards. Only won 3 cards this week. I've been usually winning 4, 5, 6, 7 every week, and only 2 rare caches, even though I've been accumulating rare players. Again, my rares sort of the wrong combinations, and like I said, selling players that have really been good, and also some buys that just haven't worked out as well. Some have. I'll show you my list buys and sells. I was actually surprised at how many I had bought. But again, a lot of it's coming from these deep ones and to play showdown, sometimes filling in because you need 2 running backs for each deep. So over the past week, I sold Carter on the Jets, but I also owned a rare of him. Of course, he's gone up with Breece Hall going down. And he was pretty good last year. He's pretty explosive from what I've seen of him. And I own a rare on that I bought for like 20, and I've raised the price quite a bit on that. I sold a New England D ahead of the showdown. Sold a Jacobs there for 23. I don't have the exact profits on these. I'm just approximating. I know they were profits. But that was my 4th Jacobs to go, and I think they went 13, 17, and I raised this one. That still went. The Burrow ended up going at 28. It's that whole thing about quality versus quantity, and to some degree, I've not lived up to what I've preached. I was sort of saying a 2-for-1 or 3-for-1 ratio is the best. And because the top end of the market is where things are going up. The very top tier quarterbacks, the 1 to 2 tier of running backs, the 1 to 2 tier of wide receivers, and the 1 tier of tight ends. And even the top defenses, which defenses can be sometimes random, but there's sort of a top half, I would say, or top 1/4. And then this Jacobs I had bought for 35 and sold it for 80. After the fees, 37 profits. So I sold about $133 worth after fees, and they were all for profits. But when I look back at what I had bought, I had spent about $196, so $60 net extra, roughly 65. And the most recent Higbee, that's a rare. That should be green. As far as the packs, actually the rookie pack got me a crappy tight end, but then a regular prize pack, I got a London wide receiver, which could be good if they actually would let Mariota throw the ball, because I own several Mariotas and now I own several Londons and Atlanta guys. So if they would just let him throw it a little more, because he has been decent and they've been playing okay, but when you're behind, you can't just run it and do dink-offs. That's just terrible coaching to some degree. Got a McLaurin, which is sort of useful out of a prize pack. Ended up buying 2 Mixons, partially to replace these Jacobs. $10, especially good price, I think. I've accumulated several Montgomerys now. He's just really cheap, and I know they're using Herbert, but he's sort of a workhorse, and Fields is playing better. I actually own a Fields that if I had used him as my captain, I used a Mac Jones as my captain in that showdown. If I'd used the Fields, I would have had all right cash. I've been accumulating some Mosterts. I got a rare and a regular for 5 and 24. He seems to be the workhorse there, and they have a pretty good offense. I know with Tua coming back, theoretically they may throw it less, but he's been getting receptions. I bought a Goff. My rare quarterbacks just have not worked out. because I had bought a Wentz. He went down for the season. I had bought a Matt Ryan. He's been benched. I had, what else? Yeah, they just haven't worked out great so far, but I just need a little bit better luck on them, I think. Just the elite quarterbacks have been so expensive on there, to me, compared to the other positions. I bought a Dak at 16. That's actually down. He was projected really high on the site I'm using, and he should be coming back to put up good numbers, but he looks pretty cheap on there right now. By the way, at 11, and this is just the prices of the actual card I bought or the set, so they might be lower. And Najee Harris, I ended up buying another one of those. I've got so many Pittsburgh skill players, and they're just doing nothing. So it is what it is. I'm pretty sure he'll be removed from being a rainmaker soon, being a superstar soon. Etienne's, I bought two Etienne's. The other one's not even on here. I bought two Etienne cores. And then they traded Robinson after that. So they were pretty clear buys. I really wish I had bought a rare Etienne. They were buys before that because he's such a talented player, and they had already started bringing him into the deal. Again, I mentioned Mixon's. Bought a Damian Harris on New England when they said he was coming back to play. He should get some work in there, even with Ramondre, and that's still cheap to me. Bought a DeAndre Swift. Hopefully he comes back and starts playing good again. But I also bought a Jamal Williams because it was cheap. I had already flipped one of those. He didn't do much this week. I thought he would. Bought a Green Bay defense. Rare, and the greens are rares, but there's actually a couple rares. That's a rare and another one. So I've been trying to, but you can see it's a little too much quantity over quality. Not overly, not a really bad, but because all these are pretty good players in my opinion that could come in, but especially running backs, I've been just accumulating, and Pierce. So I've been buying Pierce, and he's been cheap, and he's been coming in good. So again. He's not bad on the rare either because I have one of those. All right, that's it. So wild week where we saw a tie on the $100,000 winner that cost somebody basically $80,000. They still won $20,000, and they even had low cereals. So you got to be like, man, what do I have to do? Because his combined cereals were like 258, which is incredibly low, very, very low to me. But also you can see that all the winners of the contest, none of them were the giant whales of the core deep and the core rare and elite, all the various fiat and deep contests. So that's somewhat encouraging, depending on what you consider a whale. As I mentioned, I made a video just basically showing a few accounts that had spent like 200 to 500 grand. I just sort of was scrolling through them, not really deep diving on them. And again, I'll give some information on the Thursday, Sunday games probably tomorrow. So thanks for checking out my videos, liking, subscribing, and commenting. Really appreciate it. And have a good one, guys. Thanks.